Order for Tuesday, September 16th. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Burbank.
Here.
Rainey.
Here.
Svendy.
Here.
Dotson.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
And Abraham.
Here.
Mayor Kuntz.
Here.
We have all the council and the mayor present.
Thank you. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and we do have one item to add to the agenda. It's 3.5.5, Resolution 60-14. With that addition, may we have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Brent Svenby to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes, I'd just like to make a quick announcement. As you all know, Bill Kotke, longtime resident of Owatonna, passed away this past weekend. His funeral is tomorrow, but there is a service at the funeral home this evening at 8 o'clock, and since Bill is a friend of mine, I feel it's very important for me to be there, so I will excuse myself about 7:45.
Thank you. And with that, we do have it approved, and we move on to 1.4, appointment to fill the vacation office of council member at large. And we did have a special election last Thursday. We interviewed the candidates and voted on who it would be. The vote was unanimous, and with that, would like a motion to approve Bill Thompson as the replacement on the council.
So moved.
We have a motion by Greg Schultz. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion here? Want to make sure that everybody's okay with it. So. All right. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome. Now with that, we would ask you to be sworn in.
Very good.
Well, it seems like we were just doing this, I think we started about the same time as I was made. We got on the council about the same time, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Raise your right hand. I, William R. Bill Thompson,
William R. Bill Thompson,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the laws of the City of Owatonna,
the laws of the City of Owatonna,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of council member at large
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of council member at large
of the City of Owatonna,
of the City of Owatonna,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations, Bill, and good luck. With that, we will move on to the mayor again. We have a proclamation tonight.
It seems like October, September get to be the month of proclamations. So this proclamation reads, City of Owatonna, whereas crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity through systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse, including abuse to children and the elderly. Whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but cut across all economic, racial, and social barriers, and are supported by social indifferences, and whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole, here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. And whereas it is battered women themselves who have been in the forefront of efforts to bring peace and equality to the home. Now, therefore, in recognition of the important work done by domestic violence programs, I, Thomas Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Owatonna, do hereby proclaim the month of October to be National Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to actively participate in the activities and programs that work towards improving victim safety in holding predators of domestic abuse accountable for their actions against individual victims and our society as a whole. Dated October 1st, 2014, Thomas A. Kuntz.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 1.6.1, consideration to issue a cable franchise, and I think Bob Vos, is he here tonight?
I am.
If you'd Thank you.
Mr. President is the right title, is that right? Yeah. Council, Bob Vos, Kennedy and Graven, your outside counsel on cable TV matters. I don't know if staff wanted to make any introductory comments.
Yeah, I'll just note that the city did publish notice of its intent to consider issuance of a cable franchise in accordance with Minnesota law. Applications were to be submitted by 4 o'clock September 2nd for the public hearing tonight. We did have one application submitted, and Bob will go over that application.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, council members, mayor, council members, president, I am going to attempt in a fairly succinct fashion to go through the application you received and the process going forward. You do have, I think, a couple of folks that are going to want to speak at your public hearing. Of course, the public hearing is the next step in the process. And let me start by saying just a couple things quick about process. First thing is, moving forward, we've gotten where we have through a process that I've described to you a couple of times, and I won't bore you again with that. But we've gotten to this stage in the process, public hearing, and the important procedural issue to note is we must have this hearing, complete this hearing, 7 days before the city would act on a franchise ordinance contract with Jaguar. And so this is the next step in the process, and then the final step, if the council wants to move forward with Jaguar, will be adoption of a final franchise. You have received, I think council probably knows, you've received comments, as you did the last time we talked with Jaguar. You've received comments from Charter. I'm not going to go through the Charter comments. I would let them speak if they're here and they wanted to speak to their comments. But what they say in their letter about process is that if you have questions, if you have any issues that are in your mind not answered, what you should do is you should deny the application and send Jaguar back to start over again. I will just say about that, I disagree. That is not the way the process works typically. I've never seen it work that way in any city. Typically, a city at this stage of the game, if you've received an application and you have any questions, you would simply continue the hearing and allow the applicant, Jaguar, and anybody else in your community to supply additional information. That is the contemplated process. That's the process that the legislature set out. So in the event you have questions, Charter has raised any questions in your mind, or anything else has got questions in your mind, typically you would simply ask for more information and give some more time to submit that. So I did want to clarify that point about process. Then, again, I'm trying to be succinct about this. Let me run through, first of all, the standards, the legal standard that you are faced with now in deciding whether you want to issue a franchise to Jaguar. And I think the important points for the council to understand are that the law, and it's both federal and state law, very much strongly encourage competition in all kinds of communication services, cable TV being one of those kinds of communication services. But in all telecommunication services, the law really encourages the government to invite competition in. And in fact, in Minnesota, you may not, it is not legal to issue a non-competitive or a single source franchise. All franchises must be non-exclusive. You must allow competition to occur. You can't grant an exclusive franchise. And the other thing is you can't, when you are faced with a applicant for a competitive franchise, you are barred from unreasonably refusing to grant it. So the presumption, if you will, is that you are ultimately going to grant franchises if other folks want to come into town. And of course, that's relevant because Charter has made some arguments about why you should not grant a franchise. So turning then away from that to the specific issues, I've raised these with you in the past. I've talked to you about cable franchising more times than you'd like to remember. But let me point out the three issues or areas that I've encouraged you to focus on, because they're the areas that cities focus on in considering franchises: financial qualifications of Jaguar, legal qualifications of Jaguar, and technical qualifications of Jaguar. On the financial point, the application, which I'm sure you've all read carefully, the financial part of their application sets forth a representation. They simply represent to you that they have the financial capacity to build a network here in the city. I've not only read that in their application, but I've talked to their legal counsel, who is here tonight, about what the application says, and she has reaffirmed that that is in fact what they are representing to you. Do you have reason to believe that? Are there reasons here in front of you to believe that? I think there are a couple. First of all, as you all know better than I do, they are building a new building in your town. Their headquarters is here in your town, and so they've already made a significant investment in your town. They also have facilities. They have lines, fiber and otherwise, started in your town, and that's because they have State Public Utilities Commission approval to have those facilities installed, and they've done that. So I think you've got some evidence to support their representation in their application that they've got the financial capacity to do this. That's financial. Legal, I will just tell you, I've checked with the Secretary of State. They are a properly organized business entity. They have State, again, Public Utilities Commission approval as a telephone company, as a telecommunications carrier. And so I don't think there's any serious question about their legal ability to hold a cable franchise in Owatonna. And then lastly, technical ability. Their application sets forth that they are a telephone provider, a telecommunications provider. They've got, again, state authority to do that. And then in addition to that, over and above that fairly significant experience, they are also a video provider, a cable provider in 19 communities other than this one, before having got to this one. And so they have video-specific technical experience and are performing in those 19 communities. So legal, technical, and financial, you will see from the memo that I think you all have from me. I don't see a reason on either any of those three grounds not to find them qualified to receive a franchise. So then let's talk lastly about specific franchise terms. And let me start there by saying, although I have given to Jaguar both a model franchise document, a proposed, if you will, franchise between the city and Jaguar, and I've also given them a copy of the current status of renewal negotiations between the city and Charter. I've given both of those documents. We have not yet reached terms on a document. I've talked again to their legal counsel about that. We are in process. I think we've got a good conversation started about franchise terms, but we don't yet have an agreement in front of you. So what specific issues do I want to raise with you? They're really the issues that Charter raises in their letter, and they are the level playing field issues. I've talked to you about the state level playing field statute, and what that statute says is that there should be some equity, there should be some competitive neutrality on service area. If you have more than one cable operator, PEG, public educational governmental programming, the cameras that we see here in the council chambers, and on franchise fees. So I guess I would hit on those issues. On franchise fees, Jaguar has simply said they will pay the full 5% franchise fee that you have been collecting from Charter. They'll agree to the same kind of language that you've always had on franchise fees. There is no issue there. On service area, and this is the one that we've highlighted in the past, they have made a proposal to you to serve your community in 4 sections. The first section you have in the application, the way they've divided your city up, the first section they would serve as what they've labeled the north section. That's the first quadrant, I'll call it. They propose to build there first, starting as soon as this construction season. They would then propose to, based on some benchmarks, and I think that's a little bit of a soft term and we can talk about that, but based on some benchmarks that we, the city, would agree to with them, then build out to the other 3 quadrants of the city. So that is the proposal on service area. And then lastly, on community programming, on cameras and on support for cameras, they in effect say that we haven't negotiated on that yet, and I think that's right. The reason I think that's right is because doing cameras and programming and all the other kinds of programming other than your meetings here is going to require some coordination between you, the city, and Charter and Jaguar. It probably doesn't make sense to duplicate everything that Charter has done in the past. It probably makes sense to divvy out those responsibilities a little bit, and so that's going to be a little bit of a three-way discussion that we would have pretty quickly. All of that said, I have, again, having talked to their legal counsel, I have no reason to believe that we aren't going to be able to quickly reach agreement on that community programming piece. So those are the three most salient points. As to everything else in a cable franchise, and you've seen now a cable franchise a number of times from me and from your staff, they're long documents, long contracts. On everything else, I have no reason to believe that they are not going to simply accept the draft model document or the charter in process being negotiated document. I have no reason to believe that there's going to be any disagreement about any of the other issues other than those three that I've just listed. So I expect that to move quickly. So that is my very quick summary. You may want to call me back to answer any questions that you hear from the public or from Jaguar. I'll obviously be here, but I'll stop there and take your questions.
Thank you. And with that, we'll open the public hearing at 7:15. If anyone wishes to speak, please come to the microphone, and I would ask you to sign in so we know who is a speaker and make your comments.
Good evening, President Abraham, Mayor Kuntz, members of the council. My name is Christine Anderson, and I am corporate counsel at Jaguar. I am the attorney that Mr. Vos says he's been speaking with about these terms. I know that nobody likes to listen to attorneys. We all get long-winded. We use 300 words instead of 30 because that's what we went to school to do. And there is nothing worse than being the attorney talking in the room unless you're the second attorney talking in the room. So I will also try to embrace brevity. There are just a couple of things that we want to make sure you know, and then I'm available to answer questions. I'll also note that here with me in the gallery are John Eckhoff and John Rod from our sales and marketing department. And we're here because we're excited about the opportunity of being able to expand our services to the residents of Owatonna to also provide video. We already provide telephone and internet services here, and we're in the process of expanding those. And the opportunity to provide video in a unique circumstance positioned in time like we are now is very exciting to us. And we hope it's exciting to the community and the city as well. We believe that to be the case because we know that residents of Owatonna have been asking for competition, and we know that the city has sought competition. What makes now the right time to do this is actually something that's addressed in Mr. Vos's memorandum that you all have, but I'll touch on it briefly because it was raised again in Charter's letter today. Now, Charter talks a lot about the level playing field that Mr. Vos addressed, but Charter says the Jaguar application is deficient because it doesn't mimic Charter franchise language. But there isn't current Charter franchise language because Charter's franchise expired. And when Charter requested an extension of that franchise, the council said no. An agreement was reached for Charter to continue offering services. But what makes that really important from a legal standpoint is that the city is poised right now to be able to negotiate a completely new franchise agreement and set of terms, whether it's with Jaguar or Charter or anybody else that might have applied had they chose to do so. So really now is the time that we can look at a structure that fosters competition and that is really beneficial to the residents. The phased-in plan that we have proposed in our application allows us to do that. One of the things that the federal government has noted oftentimes in long-winded FCC opinions is that these level playing field statutes that require someone new to the franchise market to come in and overbuild a whole city actually decrease competition because it makes it too hard for somebody to come into an existing area where one player has the whole market force. by agreeing to a phase-in process with benchmarks that would be defined in the franchise agreement, so everybody would know what they were, they wouldn't be shifting in the wind, it allows the city to really foster competition, and I think that's what the residents want. We're very excited to participate in this. We really look forward to working with the city and the residents in that regard. And with that said, I'm available to answer any questions that the council has or to answer anything else that arises in public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? With that, I'll allow others to speak.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this issue?
Thank you, President Abraham and council, and I'm glad I'm not an attorney because probably being the third one would be worse. And I want to start out with, I'm breaking my silence on the topic of cable TV because you're at this point with the hearing. And I too am excited about having competition. But as I read through the information that is available to the public, I'm concerned that we're perhaps not, as a council, driving a point to competition as much as we are trying to navigate all of these complicated things that the lawyers like to talk about. As an example, I don't believe we collect PEG fees currently, do we? Mr. Vos, under our current agreement, do we collect PEG fees?
There is a right to pay fees.
But we don't collect them.
We wouldn't agree that there's a current agreement.
So we're going to add a fee, we're going to keep the 5%, and all of these things get paid for by the consumer. So I don't know that we're necessarily creating something where we might have competition, but it isn't going to drive the cost down for the consumer, and that's partly what you heard nearly 2.5 years ago when the citizens stood before you and said, please find some competition for us. Now, I'm excited about Jaguar. I'm a customer of Jaguar. They do provide excellent service. But I would expect, since something got accelerated to happen a month earlier, that we would have more of the list of what's required for your consideration in determining whether you should extend a franchise. One of those very important things would be the cost. What are they going to charge? These benchmarks concern me. I think if you're only going to go to the north side of town and we'll have benchmarks for getting to the rest of the town, I don't know that I know you can't do the whole town right away, but to go forward with an agreement where you don't have rates, you don't have the benchmarks, you don't have that stuff to make a decision with, I don't think you're delivering what the consumer asked for. And I can appreciate that Charter is barking and that now it's an opportunity because they don't have an agreement so we can design whatever we want. But the thing is, we haven't really designed what the customers want. We're chasing what the providers want to do. And what I would encourage you to do is design what you want for your community. Then go to the providers and say, you in or you out? You're going to come and compete or not? I don't think we've done that. There's another part that shows up in Mr. Vos's review that I know, because I've been here every time this has been talked about, but there's talk in here about the city standing ready to provide staffing, equipment, facilities for the public access channels. Nobody has stood before you and said, please add 1, 2, 3, or 4 positions and expand the city budget in the process of giving us better cable TV and competitive cable TV. Nobody has said that. But that's what we stand ready to do, apparently, in this agreement that you don't have all the details on. Bear with me, just... Another topic is the city is seeking an $85,000 grant. They don't say from who, but they do say that it will be picked back up or paid back by the customers. You're just adding layer after layer of cost to the customers that the vendors have to collect from us. That doesn't help them give us a better product. it makes for a more expensive product, and again, adds to the cost of government. It expands your budget. Some questions I would like, when you talk about benchmarks, are you talking 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Those are the kind of details that when I read the statute should be spelled out before you make a decision. And if they're not, then you're not ready to make a decision. To go forward just because everybody's excited and we have this wonderful open window just doesn't seem like we're cleaning it up. So now that I've criticized it enough, I'll make a suggestion, at least for the second time, if not the third. Please appoint a public commission to move this ball forward and to serve the community well. Fill it with people who care. One of the things that I'm hearing on the street these days is, Paul, nobody cares about cable TV, so don't worry about it. Nobody cares. I don't think the vendors want to hear that. But that's literally what the citizens are saying. I don't care. I've got my satellite dish, thanks. I don't care. And part of the reason they don't care is we've managed to turn this into quite a mess. And now when I see that you're going to expand the budget, you're standing ready to add staff, I don't care. I don't want you to do it anymore. Get out of the cable TV business, please. If you're going to be in it, though, will you please do it right? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak on this? Bob, do you have any comments that you would like to?
President and Council, I don't know that I have any comments. I guess, well, I do. I'll make a couple of comments. With respect to Jaguar attorney response about Charter's argument that build-out is not adequate in the proposal, she points out that there is no existing franchise. And take a step back. The law, that level playing field law that we've been talking about, says with respect to an existing franchise, any new franchise can't be better, and that's obviously a paraphrase, on these 3 points: service area, franchise fees, or community support. And so Jaguar's point, and it's well taken, is there is no existing Charter franchise. I guess I didn't know that was in dispute, candidly. Charter's franchise expired in 2013. They came to you in writing and requested an extension of that franchise, which you debated, you discussed, and denied. So I don't know that there's any ambiguity about that. Now, it is true in 2014, this year, you audited the company's payments to the city, found them wanting, found that they had underpaid you, ended up settling that underpayment, and in that settlement, agreed that we would continue to negotiate a new franchise through middle of next month. That's hardly an agreement that they already have an existing agreement or that has been continued. I don't think that's right, and I'm not sure that Charter has really made that argument. So I guess that's news to me, that their view is that there is an existing agreement. I didn't think that was in doubt. There is not one in my judgment. So I laid out the 3 level playing field issues simply because we've talked about them here so many times, and that's the reason I raised them. As to the residents' comments about whether you should fund community programming here, how you should do it, whether you should use general fund dollars, franchise fee dollars, a newly collected PEG fee, or otherwise. I mean, obviously those are policy decisions. I can't give you an answer to those things. Those are ultimately your decision to make, not mine. And so those are points well taken. I don't have any comments about that. The last point, I guess, raised again by your resident is it's maybe fine that Jaguar has proposed build-out over time, but he'd like to know what the benchmarks are. What are the trigger points for construction into the next quadrant? That's a legitimate question. That is something that, again, Christine Anderson, the attorney for Jaguar, and I have discussed. We don't have an agreement in front of you on that. And I guess to the extent you are interested in hearing more about that and potentially having an understanding brought back to you, I think that is something that you would want to either continue, or if not continue the hearing, set up at a future council meeting a report on where that stands, because that clearly is, out of Jaguar's application, the most significant, based on what I've heard from you in the past, significant issue that you have wanted to hear the answer to. How is Jaguar going to build out your community? How long is it going to take? And how is that going to be accomplished? So their proposal speaks for itself. We have not yet negotiated around that. I will tell you, just to preview that point, in case you want to give me any feedback, as to benchmarks, what I've talked to the company about are two different approaches. One would be a take rate based benchmark. That is, take a look at your build out in the north quadrant of the city. When you get to a certain number of customers, or a certain percentage of potential customers having taken Jaguar's service, that will be the trigger point for building out in the next quadrant. Another way to do it, it would require a little bit more financial digging by the city, but another way to do it would be to take their rate of return. What is your rate of return on the investment that you made in the north section? And when you reach an agreed upon rate of return standard, you must then build out into the next section. Those are two ideas that we've talked about. We don't, again, have that resolved, but those are two ideas. So I guess those are non-definitive responses to the couple of comments that you heard.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
Has there been any discussion of rates? I mean, do we know how the rate structure would appear compared to what we're currently paying with Charter?
Yeah, President and council members, you will see in Jaguar's application, and I may not be best to try and explain it to you, but in their application document, they have set forth, I guess what I would call a proposed rate schedule, or a preliminary rate schedule, or a better way to describe it is sort of a, here is a look at what we would contemplate, at least initially. Now, the reason I say at least initially is because divide their services down this line, telecommunications and telephone on one side and cable on the other. Your authority really extends primarily or almost exclusively just to cable. On the phone side, we don't regulate rates at all at the city level, phone rates or telecommunications rates. So push those off to one side. And then on the cable side, we used to at the city level regulate cable rates, but the Congress has decided that cities shouldn't do that, or in effect, through its regulatory scheme, has discouraged cities from doing that. And at this point, this city and the vast, vast majority of cities don't regulate cable rates. And so understand that these rates are subject to change, but this is a look at least initially, what they would propose to do. Now, of course, the beauty of a competitive market is you'd expect competition to change these rates, at least initially, downward, potentially, right? I mean, they may fight over price. And that is what we've seen in other communities that have competition in these services. Okay. So that's what they've told us so far.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak from the audience?
I just have a process question. So upon closure of the public hearing, requires no action on our part
tonight,
other than if we have any other further questions or comments regarding the current language in.
Correct.
What is there?
Yeah, President and Council, the typical way, and I'm not going to tell you this is the required way, but every city that I've worked with that has issued a competitive franchise has done it this way, the following way. Your decision on whether to grant the application, whether to find that Jaguar is qualified to come and compete on cable TV, you have done that, every city I've worked with has done that by actually issuing the franchise. So, in other words, the action to grant the franchise is the action to grant the application. They've been married together. And so procedurally, typically what happens is hearing gets closed, at least 7 days, usually a fair amount more than that, but at least 7 days passes, and you are then presented, you, the council, are then presented with a negotiated franchise which you approve, should you desire to approve their application.
So basically, we do not vote on it tonight. We have to wait at least 7 days.
Yep, President, as a matter of law, you may not vote on it tonight. You must wait at least 7 days.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment?
Thank you. I'll just add a little bit more framework to that. And as you've heard tonight, there's some concern about rates. Mr. Vos just addressed that. The rate package that we presented, we believe to be competitive with charter's rates. And as you can see, and I suppose residents don't have it in front of them, but it's a broad range of options. There are combined options for packages for people who would choose to take 2 services or 3 services versus just 1 service, telephone, internet, and video. There are also varying prices based on speed and capacity for internet and things like that. But we've tried to put together proposed rates that are competitive with charter, and we believe that that competition will continue. With respect to the benchmark issue, the benchmark that Jaguar proposes is not something that would just be a void, where we're asking you to approve a franchise that just says once benchmarks are met. As Mr. Vos alluded to, we're actually negotiating what those benchmarks would be. So the franchise ordinance that you would be presented with would define those benchmarks. So the city wouldn't be operating in a vacuum. We anticipate those benchmarks would be based on penetration, market penetration, and revenue return, and that sort of thing, as opposed to calendar dates. And that actually does have historic precedent. If you think way back, before most of us even knew what cable TV was, when franchises were originally being adopted, companies that were putting in cable systems had franchise expansion based on how many houses were going up in a new part of town and things like that. So there is some historical precedent for that, but we certainly anticipate that being defined. We're very close to, I think, reaching agreeable terms on what a franchise ordinance would look like that then would be presented to you, and certainly open to continuing negotiation in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So within this framework that we're looking at right now,
Yes.
we can't approve it within the 7 days, but after that we could.
After that you could.
You would have something ready within 7 days or in that 7-day period?
I expect that Jaguar will have a response to Mr. Vos about proposed ordinance language within the next several days. We literally are that close.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Yes?
Yes.
Just to make sure, the build-out is fiber to the house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Not coax or anything, it's fiber.
Right. We're talking about a complete fiber.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no one else wish to speak, motion to close the public hearing? By Nate. Motion by Nate. Second?
Second.
Second by Bill Thompson. Any further discussion here?
I've got a question. Where is that?
We'll do that after we vote. to
Okay.
close it. So seeing second, others, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Now you have a question?
Yeah, where is that, the information on the rates, projected rates?
That they're talking about?
Yes.
That's in their agreement that they are working on right now.
Okay, so we have not seen that at all.
I think there would.
Certainly, city staff has seen it. It was a required component of Jaguar's application, and so it was submitted to city administration. I don't know what distribution to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, public hearing is closed, and we will move on to our finance.
I've got a few comments in response. A few different things, some in response to Mr. Swenson. Number one, yes, we want competition, and we are working diligently to get that. I'm excited Jaguar wants to expand. But let's look at the reason we don't have competition. We have barriers to entry in local laws, state laws, federal laws. So anything we can do to lower those barriers to entry, I think, is ideal. So Paul makes some very valid points about peg fees and fees we're collecting. I think we need to demonstrate that the revenues we receive from any provider are justifiable. This shouldn't be a revenue stream. It should only be to support anything they're getting from the city. Well, so when we add a provider, we shouldn't make more money. There's no reason for it if we can't justify where we're spending more money that we have to create more revenue. As far as hiring staff, my expectation would be that we would not hire city staff. We would likely contract with Leanne or some similar service where they could videotape the meeting, prepare it, distribute it to all of our providers in the city, and that could be recouped through a reasonable PEG fee. But I certainly don't want to see whatever the PEG fee amount is for one provider just automatically has to be paid by another when why do we need the revenue? So I think that's a very important component to the final details of our agreement. And also with the expansion. In a perfect world, I think you should be able to service any part of the city you want. If there's only a certain part of the city that you think is going to be a viable market for you, okay, fine. I trust the market in that sense. If there's a need, it will be served. Ultimately, we're a little more involved in an entertainment business than we need to be, which TV generally is entertainment. So while we want to foster an environment where we can get competition, I don't think it is our #1 priority to make sure we provide entertainment for the community. We've got more important issues. So if we can make this the easiest market to get into to allow the most competition as possible, I think that's great. I don't think we have to be overly concerned about that they service everyone, because if they don't serve them and there's a market, someone else will. I'm not terribly concerned about that part. So I think if we can get these final few issues sorted out, I think that will be good for consumers and will be good for the city in general.
Thank you. Very well said. With that, we will move on to the financial report, and I will ask Greg to read the financial report.
Checks over $20,000 to be issued are $118,706 to Southeast Service Cooperative for the September health insurance premium, $142,062 to D&M Construction, $112,000 of that is for cart paths, and $30,000 of it is for repair of flood damage. $88,740 to Henry G. Miggs for road oil for chip sealing, $72,952 to the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, which is the quarterly workers' comp premium, $25,639 to Mansfield Oil Company for fuel purchases. Add to that other expenditures of $229,202 to make a total of $677,303 being presented as total expenditures for approval.
Thank you, Greg. What is the council's wishes?
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion by Kevin to approve the bills. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This has been approved. Moving on to the consent agenda items, which are a series of items grouped together, such as motions, liquor license requests, etc., minutes of meetings. What is the council's wishes on this?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Now we move on to action items 3.1.1, new garbage hauler permit, hometown hauler. Troy.
An application was received from Land and Costs with Hometown Haulers of Dodge Center for a garbage and refuse hauling license. Currently, 5 companies hold a garbage and refuse hauling license to provide services in Owatonna. The license would expire December 31st of each year and subject to renewal at that time. The city's license fee is $10 per vehicle, and the application is for 2 vehicles. So staff would recommend approval of this garbage and refuse hauling license application for hometown haulers.
Thank you, Troy. Questions from the council? Yep.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of garbage companies in town. That's more heavy trucks on our roads. Looking at the competition, the price hasn't gone down in regards to having multiple companies in town. How many is enough, is my question.
I don't know as if we are allowed to limit
I agree. It's just a comment.
just a comment, okay.
And I think probably the appropriate way you address that would just be to ensure that our fee is sufficient to cover the added wear and tear on the roadways.
Right.
I make a motion we approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second of that?
Second.
Second by Bill Thompson. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Moving down to resolutions 3.5.1, Resolution 5614, concur with OPU for Jaguar Communications Construction. And with that, we'll go to Mark.
Mark Fritsch, General Manager, Owatonna Public Utilities, Mayor, council members, staff. I'm asking that the City Council concur with a resolution that the Commission of Owatonna Public Utilities approved, and that resolution is to approve Owatonna Public Utilities to enter into an agreement with Jaguar Communications for a joint underground project. And a little background on that project. What we're looking at is approving it because we believe it's a very cost-effective way for us to jointly work together on a project to put underground utilities in place. So what we're looking at proposing is that we'll have our distribution electric conduit put in place, and then over time we'll end up putting the cable through the conduit. And so we'll be transitioning our distribution system for the city as we progress from you heard about 4 different quadrants that we're looking at to move our distribution underground. It's going to be saving us quite a bit of money with the project. We're looking at about $780,000 savings by having that, by doing it both at the same time, and that's just our savings. We get some results from that, more reliability, saving customers money in the long run, especially if you look at some of the storm hardening issues. And when you think of that May a couple years ago with all that snow coming down, really had a big impact on us. And that was a fairly minor storm compared to what it could be. And our number one outage cause out there are squirrels. And when we start hiding that cable underground, it's pretty tough for them to find that. It's going to save some of the tree trimming costs, really start bringing some benefits to us as well. We're looking at initially a couple $100,000 a year and up to almost $500,000 a year in savings on tree trimming costs when we don't have to start cutting the branches around the distribution system. And by coming to that agreement with Jaguar, OPU is helping ensure the availability is also with able to provide fiber, phone, cable, and internet services for our customers. Now we're looking at, is it a partnership? No, it's an opportunity for both of us to reduce our costs by combining things together. We're looking at pulling conduit. Jaguar will have fiber in their conduit, and we'll have distribution cable put in our conduit. And when you can pull it both at the same time in a joint process, you can reduce your costs, because the costs don't increase that awful much once you're on site with those directional boring devices. Now, we don't endorse one cable company over another. In fact, the agreement will expand cable and internet. We were approached by Jaguar for the project. We didn't go out there looking for somebody. And so we're looking at initially starting out about one area, one quadrant, and then over a 4-year period of time have all the conduit put in place. Now, once the conduit's in place, we need to put electrical cable in there, and that could take up to 20 years depending on how much time and so forth to do that. So overnight, you won't see the poles disappear. And in fact, even if we move our wires off some of the poles, we still have telephone and cable and other things still hanging on the pole. So if people are asking, are the poles going to be gone? And no, not right away. But over time, it'll give us a chance to start moving that underground in certain areas and start improving our reliability. I think I covered most of that. Is there going to be an additional cost to our customers? We're looking at infrastructure improvement. And so some of our costs will be up for the first 4 years. So at the most, I've been asked, what would that increase be? It should be under 2% one-time increase. If it even gets that high, I'd be surprised. So at this point, I'm open to any questions. And I also brought around brought my Director of Engineering with me, Ronnie Johnson. Ronnie really worked hard to put all the details together and make sure it did make sense for Owatonna Public Utilities and their customers, so I'll call them up here too as well if you have questions I can't answer.
Nate?
And is Jaguar's expansion here, is that contingent upon approval of the franchise, or you're improving services, your other services you already provide?
Utilities all over the country are, when you see new services going on, they're putting it underground, and there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, when you have existing overhead, it's very expensive to go underground. So a project like this gives us a chance to do that and minimize our costs. And it's one type of opportunity that we're really given, and that's why we're asking for your approval. Any other questions?
With this approval, and I'm trying to get caught up here a little bit myself, but it appears that this is coming because of Jaguar's request. What if Jaguar's franchise was not approved? Would it have any effect on this, or would it be delayed as far as your project goes?
We have an agreement with Jaguar for at least that one quadrant during that period of time to do our joint efforts underground, and you'd have to ask Jaguar any questions about their franchise.
I think one of the things that they're looking at is that Jaguar, all we're looking at is for the cable TV. They've got internet, they've got phone and everything else that they're going to be putting in anyway.
Okay.
So, is that correct?
Yeah. They're just pulling the fiber, and they offered to do a joint project. That's about what we know, and then the price was cheap enough. But especially when you're looking at saving up to $3 a foot, and joint operations, we're looking at over 50 miles. So it's quite a bit of savings for us. That's where we get about the $780,000 savings off our total cost.
Just out of curiosity, when you bury the electrical, where do you put the transformers?
Okay. Yeah, they can usually on the ground, on a pad.
They can go underground?
Yes.
Okay.
You've seen some of those in new facilities as well.
Okay.
Yeah. It all depends what size, but we're looking at distribution, so they're smaller.
Okay. Any further questions from the council? Dave?
Simple question, Mark. That's a lot of information going through that conduit. What is the actual size of that conduit?
For the fiber?
For the fiber, for electric, for in the future if you want to pull anything else through there, the way technology is changing.
The actual conduit size?
The conduit.
Total pipe size?
Yeah, what's the size of that pipe that you're putting underground that you're going to pull that through?
See, the fiber is going to be in its own conduit. And so they'll be pulling probably 4 different conduits at a time through in a pull. Fiber could be in a couple, and then we'd have our distribution in 2 others. And so they range from, is it inch and a quarter to 2 inch. We're the larger size, 2 inch for us.
Mark, yeah. So for those areas that are currently underground already, how does that work then? Is there conduit there for Jaguar to use then to pull their?
They'd be putting their own conduit in. Yeah, we wouldn't be.
Areas that are
they'd be going by themselves. They actually have a lot more to go by themselves in the joint with us. Yeah, and just one thing to note though, it's a lot of yards are going to be dug up, and with those directional boring and so forth. So again, keep that in mind as well.
Okay. Any further questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Moving on to 3.52, Resolution 5714, declare costs to be assessed for improved projects. And there we go to Kyle.
Good evening. This is the assessment, a number of assessments related to the 2013 utility and street project. This would just be the section of McIndoe Street between Truman and Lincoln. It was a portion that was, we held off on the final lift of blacktop until this year. This would be for the 2013 School Street project. It was completed after the assessments were completed last year. This would just be for sewer and water services. They were not assessed for the street itself because of its relatively young age. the 2014 street and utility project, including Meadow Lane, Linwood, Mound, Hilltop, and 16th Street Northeast. Various sidewalk repairs around town. I see that there is an error here. We are not dealing with the vault on Broadway at this time. That's not included. And then a retaining wall repair at 304 Lamond Road. So quite a number of different assessments, all wrapped up into one. And this would be just declaring the costs. The total costs of all those improvements was $2,738,850 with amount of there's a typo in here. It should be $270,221.75. Jeanette, can you check that for me? I think the 7 got moved on that number. Oh, no, that's correct. I'm sorry. I see what you did.
Just say it's down below, but it should be there.
Okay. Since I've messed that up, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions from the council?
Yeah. Kyle, has staff gone to McIndoe and inspected that, and are they comfortable with the quality of the work that was done?
Yes.
And I know that there were issues in regards to the concrete cuts that were put in through the winter, snow plows hitting the concrete, and there were cuts in that. Was that addressed as well?
The lip of curb, I believe that's what you're talking about, that there was some chipping along that. There's not a lot we can do. However, when it was blacktop, that generally isn't as apparent. So we are satisfied with the project. We are glad that we allowed it to go over the winter, and we did go in and put in some leveling course before putting the final lift on. So the ride isn't perfect, but it isn't terrible either. So it's much better than it was earlier this year.
Thank you. Any further questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, we approve.
Motion by Nate to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Moving on to resolution 3.5.3, set date for public hearing for proposed assessment, and we go back to Kyle.
This sets the date for the public hearing. We'll send out the notices yet this week for the people on the assessments, and it would be on the October 7th council meeting.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Brent Svenby to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Bill Thompson. Any further discussion there? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Moving on to Resolution 5914 to accept bids and award contract for CHIPS 2014 project sanitary sewer lines. And that again is Kyle.
This is for our annual maintenance. As part of the increase in sewer rates last year, we added additional funds to the sewer fund for maintenance activities and repair. This is going through with an in-place lining of the sewer mains. We're doing approximately 12,500 feet this year. We received good prices from In Situ Form and 3 others. We recommend the bid be awarded to In Situ Form.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Sorry, what?
Second.
Second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's been approved also. Moving on to Resolution 60-14, adopt grant funding toward Zero Deaths Traffic Safety Project. And I'll go to Troy.
The Owatonna Police Department recognizes and dedicates peace officers to traffic safety and enforcement projects outside their regular duty hours to promote and enhance traffic and occupant safety in Owatonna and Steele County. Towards Zero Deaths, formerly Safe and Sober, is a coalition of professionals representing the 4 E's of traffic safety, and that's education, enforcement, engineering, and emergency medical services. The partnering agencies joining the city with these initiatives are the Steele County's Sheriff's Office and the Blooming Prairie Police Department. The Owatonna Police Department is serving as the grant administrator for this 2015 grant period. The Owatonna Police Department and partnering agencies have been participating in this grant since 2002. The total costs requested for the 2015 grant period is $21,957. The grant will reimburse the City of Owatonna, Steele County, and the City of Blooming Prairie for costs of the overtime and fringe benefits for the officers and deputies that participate in the traffic safety projects. The city's share of these costs are matching funds for administration hours, managing the grant, and the mileage from the patrol cars used during traffic safety projects. Staff would recommend approval of resolution authorizing the execution of the agreement.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Bill Thompson to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further questions? Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Now we are down to miscellaneous, and we had discussion about a possibility of a special meeting.
Yeah, I do want to note that between this council meeting and the next council meeting, we have 3 weeks, and we have a number of things happening during that time period, one of which is discussions with Jaguar. We also have a proposed hotel project on the south end of town. There might be a need to have a special meeting in that time frame, and I say possibly because it does have to go to Planning Commission for zoning approvals, so there definitely needs to be a process followed there before it would get to the city council, but they are looking at a tight time frame. So I will have some discussions with Chris on that, and we will let you know for sure if there would be one. We would probably be looking at the 30th, September 30th, which is a Tuesday night, as a possible special meeting. We do need 3 days notice for that, and we would need to publish that meeting as we typically would for our regular meeting. So we'll update you on that, but I just want everybody to be aware that that might be a possibility.
And the Planning Commission would be meeting on the 23rd.
Correct.
So we would know by then
Yeah,
if we're...
so they will have their normal Planning Commission meeting on the 23rd. There's a number of public hearings, you know, and it's got to go through that process before it would get to council. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Okay, thank you. One of the other things that we have is that since the passing of Raymond Trulson, he was on a couple committees, the Joint Dispatch and the EDA, and I have taken over the dispatch as that was one that I used to be on prior to Raymond coming, but we have the EDA, and I guess I was wondering what the council's wishes would be as to who would, if somebody wants that, or if you want me to take it over for the rest of the year, or what the wishes are.
So the EDA meets the third Wednesday of the month, and at the end of the year, the council decides, you know, if anyone wants to change their committees they want on. So I would anticipate at the beginning of the year, there would be some discussion on who would more permanently be an EDA member, but we are short a EDA member from the council, so we do have a meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock, a regular scheduled EDA meeting, and then we would have one October, November, and December. So it would be 4 meetings if you include tomorrow, and then again at the end of the year, then we would probably decide who would be that permanent member.
By charter, does that need to be filled?
What's that?
By charter, does that need to be filled prior to January?
I think we should have somebody because we are short right now, and having somebody come to the meeting, attend the meeting, would be a benefit to the
We've got
city.
2 council members on there now.
We usually have 3.
Yes.
You know, I could fill in, but I can't attend tomorrow.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want, since I possibly might be temporary anyway, I don't know how that would go.
Again, I was a past member of the EDA too, and if you want, I can fill in to finish that off, I guess, but it would be up to your choice to decide that. So, I guess I would ask what the council's wishes are there.
I'd make a recommendation, less coverage till the end of the year.
And we can't vote on it, so that would, I guess, I'm willing to do that to finish it off. So,
Okay,
I will be there tomorrow afternoon.
perfect.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll open it up to public comment, and anybody wish to speak, please come up and sign up on anything that was not on the agenda for tonight, and ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to council comments, and we will start with Dave.
Nothing from Ward 3 tonight.
Thank you. Kevin?
Welcome, Bill. Good to see you back. Thank you for putting your name out there. Appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you. Brent?
Nothing this evening.
Nate?
I will welcome Bill as well, and I will thank the other applicants that applied for the vacancy.
Thank you, Nate. And we'll move on to Bill.
Well, first of all, I'd like to state that it's an honor to be able to fill the seat vacated by Ray. I feel privileged to do that. And then my only other thing would be the condolences to the Kotke family in remembrance there.
Thank you, Bill. And we'll go to Tom.
You know, everything you read, fiber optics to the house is the way of the future, so I am glad to see some of that happening in our community, or about to happen in our community.
Okay. And from my standpoint, sympathy to the Kotke family and wish them well in the future. So with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Kevin. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Bill. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting adjourned.